Hey man, how's it going?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
We're really doing it, Harry.
yeah. This is amazing. I know we've been talking about getting together and recording something for a while. Thank you for making the time.
Yeah, man, we have been talking about doing this for like a year
Yeah, I
now.
think it's time for me to celebrate. Looks like you've already got a beverage. I'm gonna
Yeah, good old ginger
pull
ale.
down the good stuff tonight.
It's like a party at Mark's.
Yeah, it's a crying shame. This used to be like you could get it. So man, I'm just curious. Oh
By the
wait,
way,
what is that?
my Tenere video just dropped
Oh,
2 minutes ago.
is that the Tenere? You're talking about the Holy Moly install?
Yes, the full build on the Holy Moly kit. So basically, it's just all the video I had crunched together, and it's like an hour long
Is
video. So
is is
hopefully people
is
will
this
watch
the
it.
first hour-long video you've had on the channel? I'm gonna admit, I haven't watched the entire catalog, and I know that's not the best thing to admit.
It's all right. It is the first hour long video, and I try to always keep my videos under 15 minutes if I can. I don't know if that's a good thing, but it's my first hour long video. One of the longest videos I had was that Road King video I just dropped, and that was 24 minutes or something like that. And crazy part, it actually is doing pretty well, so I don't know.
You know, we went out camping last weekend, and, we
We
talked about
did.
a lot of stuff. It
Epic
was a
adventure.
really, really nice campsite, and, the weather was thankfully blessed. I feel like we had sometimes I feel like I'm snake bitten, and on that camping trip, I felt like besides the challenges that I had, uh, you know, pitching the tent, it was pretty much perfect beyond that.
You got you got problems pitching the tent, Mark?
No, not that tent. I'm talking about there was all that hard, rocky, ground that I couldn't get a stake in, and, that was troubling.
Yeah, that was unusual actually. I was never been at a campsite where we were actually camping on one big rock. There was really no
Yeah,
soil.
so interesting, I've been looking for other campsites to follow that one, and I actually ended up finding a bunch of them over in Ocoee, Tennessee, and a couple of them looked like that. They
Yeah.
all had these rocky, you know, uh, like tent si I'll call them tent pads, but they're really not pads. And, yeah, I don't wanna
Yeah.
do that again. I do want the view. I do wanna have, if I can, like a scenic setting where I've got a vista or water or whatever. That was really, really nice, but I don't want to have to worry about, securing my tent. So, hopefully I can figure
Yeah,
that
it's
out.
it's interesting. A lot of those paid campsites have like a gravel pad, which is weird to me, or like a concrete pad. It's kind of
Yeah,
weird.
I'm wondering if it's because since we're just talking about it, like, is it because they have more rentals or reservations from, like, camper and RV types? I feel like maybe tent people may
I
go
guess
more
that
rustic. I
yeah,
don't know.
I guess that kind of has to be it. I don't know, but I think mostly people probably pull up there in some sort of vehicle, not like a
Yeah.
motorcycle.
When you got up to let your dog out, it got me thinking about something because I couldn't see your Z900 behind you, and I forgot about it. And seeing that beside the
There it
Tenere, right,
is.
it got me thinking about the question, that I really wanted to talk about a bit this afternoon or this evening, and that is, how many bikes is the right number of bikes? I think
All
all
the
the
bikes.
bikes. I know that
All the bikes.
the old joke is, like, if n is the number of bikes, then n plus 1 equals, the correct number of bikes, but, when you only have so much room and you only have so much time to ride, like, what do you think? I mean, you've got, what, 2 right now plus Reese's, which I'm not gonna count because that's not something you're gonna take out on the street, although it's super cool.
Yeah, yeah, that one doesn't count. The most I've ever had was three, and which I do have three now. But again, right, one's my kid's bike, but three personal ones. I had what did I have? I had the Triumph Bonneville. the BMW R18, and
Sweet bike.
then the Z900, right? So I loved having all those three bikes, but I think three is a big number, especially for someone like me who is married and has a child. I think there's a not enough time to really go around for three bikes, although I enjoyed having three bikes. Um, I don't know. It's a hard question. You and I always talk about this thing about diversifying your garage and having bikes that do different things. And I think with those three bikes, I had three bikes that were, mainly road bikes, right? So, um, that's I put the Bonneville and the R18 up for sale at the same time, um, hoping that the R18 would sell first, and it wasn't the case. So, but anyway, sold the R18, got the Tenere, and then the Bonneville sold before any of that happened. So I could have kept three bikes, but I feel like for me right now, two is a pretty good number, but one is a road bike, and then the other is, I guess, what I would call my adventure bike, you know. So, what do you think? How many are you running right
Well,
now?
yeah. So I'm embarrassed to talk about this one. So where you get a legitimate excuse to discount Reese's bike from the fleet because it's a 50cc bike. Um, I have a TW200, which is the girlfriend's bike. Although my name is on the title,
The
and
girlfriend's
and
bike.
I also insured it under my name as well because I've taken it out in the street a few times and yeah, and I've got the DR650, which is my off-road light adventure bike. So that's two. I guess
Yep.
it's one and a half. I'm not gonna. Maybe I won't count her bike as a whole bike of mine because it's something I wouldn't have bought without
If
her.
it's technically hers,
Uh,
yeah. If it's technically hers,
but
let's not
it's
count
not.
that,
I mean, that's the thing. Like,
So
it's kind of like it's
it's not
hers,
tech.
but I kind of wanted it. I kind of wanted to have it. Um, so
Sure.
that's, I guess, one and a half or two bikes. And then I've got the Street Bob, 2021 Street Bob, which I've been fairly obsessed with, and
That's the
it
most
is the
recent.
most recent. I have the R9T Urban GS that we bought when we were Boxer Bros for like, I don't know, 5 months, 6 months.
Hmm.
And
Never
yeah,
made
when
that
you had your
video.
R18, we never did that video, thank God. And and then I've got the SV6.
Mark and Rob,
Yeah, then I got the
trade boxers. That's what it
SV650.
was going to be
Yeah,
called.
so it's like five bikes or four and a half.
Yeah.
Um, and I had somebody comment the other day on one of my videos. I had talked about having, I think four bikes that were mine, and I felt like it was too many. And he kind of came back and said something to the
Yeah.
effect of, well, it's not. Like if you're fine with it, then you should be fine with it, that kind of thing. And I don't have any kind of like
It's
bike
true.
guilt, but what I do have is I have a limited ability to spend time between four bikes in an enthusiastic way. So I feel like for me with my time,
So
it might be too many.
so for the longest time, I had only one bike when I in my earlier riding career, if you will. My first bike was a Honda Rebel 300, and I had that bike not very long, and then I had an Indian Scout, which Scout 60. And what's great about only having one motorcycle is that you get to know it really well and you kind of, bond with it. And I feel like when I jump onto different bikes so often is there's always this period of like adjusting to that bike for that particular application. Like when we went on the camping trip, back on the Tenere, taller bike, camping gear, kind of feeling it out for the first, half hour or so. And then yesterday I jumped on the Z. Every time I jump back on the Z, I'm always reminded how much I love that bike. But again, there was that, kind of adjustment, kind of 30-minute adjustment kind of thing, which isn't a bad thing, but I feel like you don't really get to bond with the bike as much as you would if you only had one, you know?
Yeah. Another example of that is when you were talking about that, it got me thinking when we were on the camping trip, I was on the DR650 and I haven't got to spend a
Hmm.
lot of time on that bike for reasons that you know about with the carb, and they're behind me now, thankfully. But because I bounce around between bikes, when you ride the DR650 and you ride the Street Bob and you ride, for example, either the R9T or the SV, I'll just consider those to be interchangeable for the purpose of this discussion. The way you handle those bikes or the way you turn them, they're all different. And especially the DR650, one of the things
Yes.
I did not understand until recently, having not ridden a bike like that on the street, is the way posture your body is different on a bike like that. It's more like a supermoto,
Like
less
like
like a
more cat.
super, and less
Yeah.
like a sport bike, right? And so I feel like had I spent more time on that bike, consecutive rides, that kind of thing, I would have enjoyed it and gotten more out of it. And again, that's kind of the problem uh, or curse of having like three different types of bikes in the garage if you don't have a lot of time, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like when I'm on the, something taller like your DR or Tenere, I'm doing a lot more counter steering. Even at like higher speeds, like 30, 40 miles an hour going around just making a turn, I feel like I'm doing a lot more counter steering than leaning, if that makes any sense. Just because the bike is so tall, I guess, and the tires are so skinny. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think for me it's like one of those things where it's like I like them all. I like them all, and I don't mind changing and adjusting, having that adjustment period. But there is a part of me that's like, you really sometimes do need to buckle down and just learn how to ride this one bike really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's like right now, even today on the Harley, I still haven't figured out how to steer that thing right. Like, yeah, I can lean it over and I can turn it hard, but like the right way, I haven't really spent enough time trying to figure it out. And I can get on the SV and the R9T, and it's a much more natural experience because it's
Yeah,
more typical of what I would have been riding for the last 15 years. But but
definitely.
yeah, it's way different when you get on like a big cruiser or a dual sport. And I really like having different types of bikes, and I want to spread the overlap out as much as I can. I want the least amount of duplicity. Um, I had a diagram I wanted to share. Maybe I'll be able to bump it in here right now in the edit, but I don't want to chance it tonight since this is our first podcast.
First
Yeah,
official
I don't want any
podcast.
more. I've already juggled enough technical glitches getting this thing going, so I don't want to introduce any more variables. But um, the thing is for me, like I want the bike that is the trail camping bike on one side. I want the
Mhm.
street, or I'll call sporty street, on the other, and then in the middle, I want the cruiser. The real trick, though, for me is I would like to. We've talked in the past about like having a uh, like I feel like I struggle with this, and I think you might have mentioned that you have as well. And feel free to jump in, but like I feel like I want to make everything the same to some degree, and part of that's when I shop for a bike. Even I love 270-degree twins or that firing order, or any kind of twin. I don't love parallel twins. I do kind of like inline fours in a certain way. I feel like maybe I made a mistake with the SV because maybe I should have gotten another inline four after the ZX4RR, and let the inline
Yeah,
four fit that sporty thing, right?
the L twin is its own little thing too, though, isn't it?
So,
Isn't that an L
yeah,
twin
yeah.
in there?
So, all all of those bikes are different engine configurations. The SV650
Hmm.
is a 270-degree firing order, though, even though it's a V twin. It's a 90-degree V. But if you look at the firing order, it's 270. So, theoretically, I mean, I realize there are differences with the way it's balanced and the valve train and all of that. But the overall character is going to be very similar, for example, to the engine character in your Tenere back there with the MT-07 engine. You know, it's a 270-degree twin. It's going to have a very harmonic similarity. It's going to be different than a Harley. I won't get into that tonight. And much different than the Beamer engine, which is a 180-degree firing order, and obviously nothing like the single. So I feel like maybe I messed up. I'm trying to figure out how to get 3 bikes that fit those roles that all have different engine characteristics. Although the Harley is a given.
Yeah.
You know, the Harley is going to be a 45-degree
I
V.
mean the Harley is definitely and for you guys that don't know, I had a Road King for like 2 weeks or something. And there is nothing like a big old Harley, just in my opinion. There's nothing that's gonna do what it does. And that's coming from the cruiser I had before that was the R18, and that's obviously a boxer twin. So they just all do something different, even though they're the same kind of ethos. If it's a cruiser, they all kind of do something a little different. But I would say Harley is probably, and you can jump in here, Mark, because you're the one that still has your Harley. I think Harleys kind of do a thing as far as like vibe and feel that no other bike does, if that makes any
There
sense.
really isn't. The Indian Sport Chief comes close, but even I looked it up, and even the V angle that they chose, they have a very similar engine architecture. On that, I forgot the name of their engine, but their air cooled engine architecture is very similar to Harley's in that it's a V with a single pin on the crank to give you that potato sound, as some people call it. I have a different way of referring to it that I'll ask you about in a minute. You can either validate
Yeah.
me or shoot me down as a musician, but um, I feel like if you look at it, they have a slightly different V angle though. I can't remember. I think it's a little bit wider for reasons I don't know. I don't know
Uh,
if it's because they were kind of thinking back about when Harley tried to patent the sound of their engine. I'm not sure what the driver was for them to not choose a 45-degree V,
I
but
don't.
still seek that thing.
Yeah, and I actually owned a sport, not a sport Chief, just a regular Chief, the redesigned Chief, and I'll admit the I guess it's called the Power Plus engine. It has its own thing going as well. I guess it's to me it's more tractor like.
I've mentioned in my last video that I released this morning, that was the video about the SNS slip-ons, that the Street Bob with the quieter exhaust and the louder or more open intake does remind me a lot of that Indian in the way you get this sort of you get to experience all the mechanical noises, but it's still not
Yep.
like the Indian. The Indian definitely had a more primitive thing, and I don't know if it was just the way that engine was sitting in the chassis. I'm not sure. It definitely had a agricultural kind of over the top, like everything was built around the motor kind of feel. It's really neat.
Yeah, the Chief definitely has a special motor, and I had the 111 motor, which is the base Chief, and that is definitely one of the kind of motors that I really liked, even though I had 1,000 problems with my Chief. Don't have a ton of experience with Harley, but I mean, it's just really hard to beat like a big old Harley engine. I had the twin cam engine and the Evo, and I would say, even till this day, I think the Evo engine is still the most characterful Harley engine that I had the privilege of riding. So I've ridden the Evo, the M8, and then the twin cam. I rode a Lowrider
Oh
ST
man,
that was fully built out
that bike
too.
sounded so
Oh
good.
man, it was a Harley perfection, and if you could even say those two things in the same sentence, but yeah, I really enjoyed that bike. I wish I kept my Harley, but honestly, like I kind of like the bikes to kind of disappear when I'm riding. I don't really like to be thinking about the bike all the time. So I feel like, at least with my Harleys, every time I got on, I was always sort of like making sure everything was running correctly, and always kind of like, I don't know if it's fair to say, like
You were
babysitting the
worried
bike,
about it.
if that
So
makes any
so when you
sense.
say you want it to disappear,
Yeah,
it's less about the bike from an experience standpoint disappearing, and more about your concern about how the bike is running, or is it both?
I got into motorcycling to kind of, get to a destination and sort of get me out doing more things. And although I enjoy the casual ride and sort of the, hey man, let's ride and just go wherever. I really like riding to a destination. And after the first 30 minutes of, all the character and the fun of the bike or whatever, I really like just concentrating on what's around me. With the Harley, more than any other bikes I've ever owned, I found like on like a 3-hour interstate ride, I was always thinking about the motorcycle. And I know that's like a lot of people would say that's a great
Point,
thing,
right?
but for
Yeah.
me, yeah, for but for me, all the Harleys I've had some sort of issue with them. So I always feel like I'm babysitting the bike, or like,
But
I made it this far, hope nothing's falling off the bike,
but what if they
that kind
didn't
of
have the
thing.
issues? What if it was you still got to have the vibe and all that, but you didn't have the issues?
I just don't think that exists. Let's face it, Harley in the United States is, everywhere, right? So, when people say Harleys break down or whatever, there's just a lot more of them on the road, especially like in Nashville, Tennessee, right? I guess. Our friend Andrew, for example, every time we get on the bike with him, there was always something falling off his Harley or something not happening. My nephew Andre,
Forgot
he's
about
had
Andre.
an FXR and the Sportster. Yeah, and every time I would go out with him, there would be something going on with the bike. It would always get fixed, and we would always get it back on the road, but there was always something to do with the bike. So, and then with me, of course, I get the worst Harleys. I get the ones with, the swing arms biting into the frame and stuff. So, hey.
Well, I don't know. I know that the twin cam, for example, that was in the Road King, everybody loves that engine for the reasons of character, and even the guy that sold me my bike, because it was a new to me bike, he went back and got a twin
Yeah.
cam. And I've never
Oh,
ridden the twin cam, full disclosure, and I've never ridden the Donna, although I feel like I probably should, because I feel like I'm really into.
you did start up my Road King before
Yeah,
I
I
sold it,
did,
though.
and that was one of the better sounding Harleys I've ever heard with was it the 475
Man,
cam that was in that bike?
a
Oh,
510.
Jesus,
Yeah,
that's a
SNS
massive
510.
cam. Anyway, it sounded amazing. I really hope that the M8 doesn't cause me those kinds of problems. I mean, I don't mind a little oil leak or something that's fussy and then having to deal with it, even if it is unnecessarily
Hmm.
complicated to fix, because let's face it, part of the reason you get that experience with the engine is the fact that it's kind of an archaic design. And that's evidence of the
Yeah,
fact you've
100%.
got
Yeah.
3 flipping places to put oil and drain it. It's kinda nuts. I mean, that is still a, like, WTF, like, why? Like, couldn't you make a single.
What's funny
Go
about
ahead.
that? So what's funny about that is you can actually put the same
Yeah,
oil in
yeah.
all three
I don't
compartments.
get it, man, like,
Just like
is Indian like that? Is it 3 hole or 2 hole or 1 hole? Do you know?
there are two drain plugs, but it just helps
See,
with the oil drainage. It's all the same sump, I guess,
and
or
the Harley
whatever.
guys are gonna hate
The oil.
that I criticize it, but I think the less holes, the better.
I mean, I completely agree because I don't know, man. Like that was the one thing. So I was surprised how easy the oil change was and everything like that when I did it. A friend of mine helped me do the first oil change that I did. My Road King had like 50,000 miles on it, and so obviously changed the oil in there or whatever. So I don't know, but it was just one of those things where like I was spending a lot more time worrying about my Road King than I was riding it or riding the other two bikes. So there's coming back full circle. I was kind of worried about getting that up and running and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, you know what? My little girl wants to start riding anyway, so I'll just sell it and get her first dirt bike. So that's kind of
Uh,
where I ended up.
yeah, we can pick that up
You know?
sometime. That really is a nice thing, though. I know when I was probably about the same age as she was, or maybe I was a year or two older. I don't remember. I wish it had been even earlier. My grandfather got me a YZ80, and that was a magical time, man. I
Yeah.
I I don't know that I would be talking to you tonight, or that we would have ever crossed paths because if that hadn't happened. I mean, that's what made me, a
Yeah.
motorcyclist and, bike life, like bike
Yeah.
life.
It's
I mean,
incredible.
I always identified with it. It was something that was mine and something I always really enjoyed. So, and something that not a lot of my friends had, and I thought that was super cool because everybody wants when you're a kid, man. Everybody wants something that their friends don't have, right? That makes you, kind of helps center you in terms of your identity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, my whole thing was just I just woke up. I've always wanted to do it. I never felt called to ride the bike, but I was like, I just want to learn a new skill. And so I took the MSF course and then I was like, man, I'm in deep, you
Yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah.
I got bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like it either bites you or it doesn't. And
Yep.
I do wish kind of circling back to something you were saying a minute ago about the bike disappearing. I kind of am jealous of the people that can have a bike and like especially guys that
Yep.
can have like for example, I'm going to pick on the on the metric bike, metric cruiser segment for a minute. Um I had a Vaquero. It was given to me by my dad. I did not bond well with it. I have often thought about, like, what would it have been like to own that bike where I live now out in the country and not in Nashville, Tennessee when I had it. Um,
Hmm.
it definitely did not have the same kinda character that the Harley has, but I'm really kinda jealous of the guys that can ride a bike like that for 30 or 40,000 miles and just kinda love it for what it is, an
Yep.
efficient, heavyweight bike that does offer a lot, but doesn't really scream character at every twist of the throttle, you know? I mean, it's competent, but not necessarily characterful. Sorry, I can't even say it's too late and I've had too much of this, but yeah, something that doesn't scream Riz, right? Doesn't have that thing like a Ducati or a Harley. I feel like those bikes have a lot of that. I even feel like the Yamaha MT-07, that powertrain's kind of carved out its own little niche, its
Oh
own
yeah.
little kind of legendary following. But there's so many other bikes that just don't. And I can't. Like I gotta have for me personally, when I ride, I really have to have something that I find a little novel. If you're a camera guy, like a Leica, like it makes you want to pick it up. Like I like that about motorcycles.
I 100% agree with you. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I held off on a Tenere for so long because I was like, it just looks like every other adventure bike out there, or whatever. Granted, the headlight was kind of cool in its own little way, but when I saw the kits for it and everything like that, I was like, this is a way I can make this my own, you know? And I know what you mean about it being a little special to you. It just kind of needs to kind of do more than just get you to A to B, right?
Mm.
It needs to do more than that. And I think for me, the bikes that I loved haven't been like what do you call like spec sheet standouts. They've always been like you own that bike, like the W800 Cafe. Like nobody knows what that is here in the United States. You can't even give those away. I mean, you can buy them all day long for like $4,000 on Marketplace.
Yeah.
But I love that bike. But it did more for me than just be a motorcycle. But kind of going back to what I said a second ago, it still did so much for me intrinsically, but then when I would ride it, the bike would disappear because I guess I guess trust it is the word. Like I just trusted it that I would have no issues, you know? I think that's kind of where I am with bikes. Is I want to jump on hey Mark, I'll meet you at the campsite. 2 hours later, I'm
You're
on
at
the
the campsite.
Tenere,
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
no. I'm at the campsite. There's no like something fell off the bike,
There's
or
not a Ducati
or I had to
or
find.
a Harley story to go with it. One of the things I've always said to the people that have known me is that if you ride a motorcycle, in my opinion, I mean, you're taking risk. We'll talk about that some other night, but you're taking risk being on one anyway.
Mhm.
And you're carrying extra expense because you probably have a car, unless you live in like SoCal or something, right? Where the weather's always great and you could get away with just having a bike. But if you're on a motorcycle and you're going to risk it to go somewhere, especially commuting to work or whatever, if you don't look at it when you walk away, if it doesn't strike you in some way, man, you're riding the wrong bike. You got to want to look at it when you walk away from
Sell
it.
it.
Another
Yep.
another way of saying it is I
Hundred
saw a guy
percent.
on Reddit say this, and it really stuck with me, and it's so true. I've also said, for example, that and I'll get to what he said in a second, but I've also said that, you know, if you're riding that bike that you want to look at when you walk away, you kind of feel like a character in your own movie. And the way he said it was motorcycling is all cosplay. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can see that too, right? You know, it's that thing that it goes back to me to that inspiration. Like it should have a visual, inspiration component. It should have a character component, and then it allows you to become that. Like you're on that, and you're also part of that as well. And I just think it's such a unique thing that if you just go out and ride something that's like a versus versus people or a V-Strom. And by the way, I almost bought a Versus and still would probably be okay having one. I can be the boring dad guy on the Versus, but that'll be my character. But like those are bikes that are more utilitarian in nature, and you know, like the two bikes you have behind you are reliable, but also they have a lot of character, right? They are not utilitarian first.
Yes,
If that makes any sense.
I agree. I feel like with, especially Yamaha and Kawasaki, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have something that feels and looks cool that is also reliable.
So, kind of getting back to the multiple bike thing. You know,
Yeah.
you've got a very respectable uh, ADV bike, middleweight ADV bike. You've got the fairings off of it, or sorry, the windscreen off of it, and you know it looks really sick. By the way, well done. I can't wait to go watch that video. And you've got a very
Thank you.
awesome, you know, cafe bike that you can rely on, and both of those are reliable bikes. So you've got, in my opinion, you've got two of the pillars. You've got the sporty street bike.
Yes.
You've got the traily ADV bike. What about the
Yep.
other bike? You think you may ever consider putting a cruiser or some kind of more relaxed motorcycle into the middle there, or do you think that your time and I mean you've got everything covered right now? Realistically, nobody needs a third bike, but do you think you may introduce one at some point?
Well, I would argue that nobody really needs a cruiser, right?
I mean,
Like,
unless you need a lot of friends with
you know,
tattoos, but yeah.
well, the cruiser thing, I would say that bike is more about the experience of riding only. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I think that bike is predominantly more about the experience, the sound and feel of the machine, right? Which I could attest to that with the Road King. Like when I rode that even down to the store, I felt like, you know, kind of like a badass old geezer, you know what I mean? Like just kind of riding around, like loving the sound of just enjoying the ride. Um, but I think it excels in this one area which none of the other bikes in any category will excel at. I think it's long distance highway travel. And the Road King is by far one of the best bikes I've ever used on the highway. All that weight and all that stuff just
Yeah.
translates into stability when you're on the highway. I mean, it just feels like nothing can move you, you know? And then also what's crazy, I still have the windscreen by the way. And that windscreen was the best windscreen I've ever had. And I was going 80, 90 miles an hour on the interstate with my visor up, and I would never do that on any of these other bikes. It was the most comfortable I've ever been on the interstate. I mean, even with the R18. So, I have to say that having a cruiser like I guess cruiser is not the right word. Having a tourer, like a big cruiser, tourer bagger, whatever you want to call it, is kind of the ultimate if you are going to spend the majority of your time on the interstate. It's the best tool for the job. What do you think?
I don't know. I think it depends on the cruiser. So obviously the Road King, it's
Yep.
designed for that, right? I mean that's kind of the
I
thing.
mean, it earns the name.
Yeah.
It
Well,
earns the name.
except
I will have
well,
to say it.
ironically, I'm gonna pick on Harley again because I can. I own one. I feel like I have a little bit of a license to do that. Don't under,
Hey, I've owned two Harleys. You've owned two or three in your
I don't
lifetime.
understand why.
You
I
can
don't
talk about
understand
'em.
why they call it the Road King and they give it at least today. And I'm thinking maybe even the generation that you had because it was the 88, cubic inch engine, and now it's a
Yep.
114. Why even the Street Bob gets a 117, Lowrider S gets a 117, but the bike with the name Road King gets the same engine as the most basic Softail bike, which would be the standard. It's a 114. I don't get it. And it drives me a little nuts that you give it the name and you can't give it an engine that's at least one up, if not at the top of what's available. I get it. They have other bikes positioned up there, but I just
Yeah.
the name to me, I don't know, man. Is it just a name to make the rider feel good? It's a cool bike. It is endless. Look, realistically, it's enough engine. The 114 on my bike.
Yep.
One of the things that I was worried about when I bought the Street Bob because I was looking at um, what's the one that we looked at? No,
Lowrider
no. What
S.
was the one that we looked at that had the bigger front tire? I couldn't get over.
Oh, Street Bob. Oh no,
Sport
no.
Bob?
Fat
Was it
Bob.
Fat
Fat
Bob or
Bob.
Sport Bob? Is
Fat
Sport Bob
Bob.
a thing, or am I just making
Fat
names with the
Bob.
word Bob in it at this point? It probably am.
There's a sport
Okay,
glide.
okay, okay.
There's
Well,
a
I'm
sport
mixing up
glide.
my bobs and my glides, but anyway, it's hard, man. It's hard to keep up with Harley's naming, But I digress. The Fat Bob, it it had a bigger engine. The Lowrider S had the 117,
Yep.
and I ended up buying a 114, and I was like, man, this is probably not going to be a great move. And I was thinking it's just not going to be enough power.
I think you did the better
Man,
thing.
that bike's
Yeah.
got more torque. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have like a lot of peak horsepower, but the torque is delivered so aggressively on it with the flash and everything. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want any more power. I do want a little bit of that cam
Yeah.
vibe, but I don't want any more power. 114 is enough. It's enough for me. Maybe I'm just getting old, man. But so all that to say, as critical as I am of the engine selection in the Road King, it's fine. I
Mhm.
just wish it was a 117.
Well, I think you lucked out with the 114 though, because I think the 117 kind of they're starting to homologate it now with the other brands, and usually like the first year of something coming out like that sort of standard is kind of not the best time to jump on it,
Fair enough.
But
But
you know,
But going back to the idea of like the best highway motorcycle, I think that's what you were originally asking before I got all off on the Road King
yep.
tangent because that's what I do is go down tangents. I mean, I can barely complete a
Hmm.
normal YouTube video because I can't seem to stay on task. But at any,
That's okay.
yeah,
We're just it's a
what's great about this,
podcast.
right? We
We're
can just meander through the world of whatever comes in our minds. But
yeah.
the thing about the highway cruising on a cruiser, I've not actually experienced that in any kind of positive way. I would say that the Street Bob without the quarter fairing is at 80 miles an hour is a little terrifying. You're getting, I don't know if it's because you're so low, but you're just getting so much of this wind, kind of wind blast, and then your arms are up. I
Interesting.
remember the guy at the Indian dealership when I told him that the Scout bobber was, too aggressively postured, and you're like the monkey like this. He was like, "Well, you don't want to
Yep.
be a sail," and I was like, "Yeah, okay, I get it, bro, but like, I also don't want to be a clam. Like, I feel like I should like be making an oyster in my belly
Yep.
the way I was hunched over." But I will say on the Street Bob, it's a great position. You do end up developing some muscles in your shoulders you didn't know that you had the first few times you ride it, but it does not bode well for highway riding. And I feel like had I ridden the bike that you had with the bars down lower, I would probably appreciate that more. And I'm no stranger to wind blast. I mean, none of the bikes I have any kind of wind protection of any significance on them, but for whatever reason, the wind blast on the Street Bob is
Well,
really, really brutal.
yeah. Well, I had taken the windscreen off of the Road King and riding it around like
Oh, it
that,
looked cool like that.
and it still was it was amazing.
Yeah.
And what's crazy to me is that the Road King ended up feeling like almost like a vacation on the interstate. Like I didn't mind riding the highway. So let's get back to the original question then. What is the right amount of motorcycles for someone who wants to own more than one bike?
I think it is based on where you are in life and how much space you have, both in physical space and then, of course, personal, like, space in terms of your schedule. For me, I
Yeah.
think, man, I hate this question, and that was what I wanted to talk about, but I hate it. Um, for me, it's going to be probably, I mean, the ideal number, if you pick wisely and you're willing to spend up, I think
Yeah.
the correct number is realistically 2. And I could spend a solid hour talking about it. I'll give you a quick preview in my mental calculus is that, 1, you have the cruiser bike, that you can do trips on, and you need to pick the right cruiser bike for you. Obviously, for me, not riding on the interstate, the street bike was fine. And then the second bike would be the other bike, and that would be I wanna go fast, I wanna turn fast, and I want to go on, forest roads. I live close to hundreds of miles of forest roads over here in Tennessee, and I'm
So jealous.
really fortunate. The reason I say I don't include a sport bike in that is that the Desert X in particular, for example, eh, is just in the Tenere too. I mean, I think those are both examples, and I probably could throw the Africa Twin in as well if I was being honest, and probably an F900 GS and maybe the Triumph 900 as well. But there's so many amazing middleweight adventure bikes that go fast, that turn fast enough for most
Well,
people. And I think a lot of us get really hung up on the
mhm.
idea that you mentioned spec sheets. Like, in terms of, like, I don't really ever drag the pegs on my bike. So do I need a sport
Yeah.
bike that you can regularly get your knee down and maybe even your elbow pretty close to the ground, like I've seen some guys do on R1s up on US 129? For me, the answer is no.
Mm.
Um, so if you think about it like that, you get everything you need in a Desert X, and you get the character and the charisma of the Ducati engine. You get 110 horsepower. You get 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. You get killer range with all the fuel capabilities. You get the luggage. You get all of it, and the style. If you're into that '80s, the kind of neo '80s thing, which I love. And there's not a lot.
I think it's one of the best
Yeah,
looking bikes
it's a
on the
damn
market.
shame there's not more '80s inspired bikes out there. But again, another another discussion for another time. But, like, for me, if you took those 2 bikes, put them
Yeah.
together, they would cover everything. Now, that said, I still think there's a good place for a lightweight dirt bike you could just go thrash around on a trail. So maybe 3 is the real number. I don't know. Like, I love the idea of having a TW or some small lightweight dirt bike that is not going to ever be used for camping. Well, unless it goes in the back of the truck, or it's a camping
Yep.
accessory at that point, right? But I'm not going to take it with bags somewhere. Like, I think there's still a really good use case for that. And
Yep.
and the cool thing about those bikes is that your friends can ride them, your family, you can show them how to ride a motorcycle. Like, it's a great learner tool. You can screw around and wheelie and do whatever, and if you drop it, you don't really care. So maybe 2
Yep.
real bikes and 1 fun bike. Maybe that's the best way to say it for me. But that's being very disciplined.
I'm with you on there. And when I was buying my second Indian, and at that point I only had one bike in the garage, I think. So I traded one bike to get sold the Roadster. Yeah, so I had the Roadster and I got the Chief, right? And so um the guy who sold me both my Indians was like, "Yeah, like those two bikes are awesome, three's a crowd," or something like that. He had a little saying for that. But I think, like what you were saying, it just depends on the type of rider. Like there are riders out there who don't ever want to go camping, who
Sure.
don't ever want to do anything, right? But I think we're gonna look at this as at the through the lens of like a rider who wants to be a well-rounded rider and not just kind of like only a sport bike rider or only a Harley guy or whatever, right? So I think if I'm looking at the lens, for somebody who can afford to have a few different bikes and also someone who wants to be a well-rounded rider who wants to do a little bit of dirt, go camping, do a long trip or whatever, I think that you could get away with one bike, but it has to be an adventure bike, right?
Yeah. If I had
Some
to own
something like
one,
you
if I had
mentioned,
to own
right?
one, I would say Multistrada.
Right. It has to be something like this. I told a guy the other day about the Tenere, and he was like, "Well, do you still love your Z900?" I was like, "There's not really a better street bike for me right now than the Z900 RS Cafe over there." But the Tenere in its current configuration, not the stock configuration, kind of checks all the boxes for me. You know, it's good looking, it's unique, it's fast enough, it's got good suspension, you know, it does what it's supposed to do. In kind of all those extremes. You can take it on road, you don't ever have to take it off road. So you can take it on road, off road. You could do almost anything with it, right? But I guess it's never gonna be great at one thing. So if I'm looking at it
But is
like,
it great
I think
enough at
three.
all things for
Sorry,
your particular performance envelope? I think that's the thing
I
that
think at
people aren't
this,
honest with
I
themselves
think
about.
at this, yes. So I think at this stage in my life, it is gonna be, it's the perfect one bike in its current configuration. I keep having to say that because a lot of people think I'm talking about the stock Tenere. The stock Tenere is way different than this, and uh, I think for my skill level right now and where I'm at in my life and riding career and all that kind of stuff, it is the perfect do-it-all bike. Um, However, I think the magic number, because I want to own multiple bikes, is three.
Mm.
I think the magic number is three because I like having a bike that just does street, and I always like the cafe retro bikes. You know, my first sort of like,
Oh,
I love this bike. This look of this bike the Thruxton, the Triumph Thruxton 900. Was like, wow, what a great looking bike, that kind of thing. So I always kind of gravitate to that. Um, the adventure bike, I think, is a good Swiss Army knife, a good camping bike. You know, it's not a small dirt bike that you can't load down with a bunch of gear. It's, you know, it's street legal. You can do off-roady stuff on it. You can put a big old tent on there. It's, you know, great bike for that. But I'm with you on the small CC, you know, 300 or 250 you could put in the back of your truck and just, you know, have a great old time with either. But I think for me, the thing that I'm closing in on is it has to be street legal. Like I don't want a bike that's
well, yeah.
just a dirt bike because yeah, because I
Well,
know I'm the type of guy that if I put the bike in the truck and I take it to a campsite, I'm gonna want to ride that bike down
well,
to the shop and get firewood and, you know, all that
even
kind of
if you
stuff or whatever.
even if you
So
don't, this is a great place to stop. But like out here on these forest roads, you have to be tagged. So it's not an option.
oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know.
it's
Yeah.
not an option. Now the good
Okay.
news is you could get in Tennessee where we are, you can get and I'm sorry for those of y'all that aren't, but you can get many different dirt bikes and put tags and blinkers on them and then go apply for a tag for the bike and they'll give it to you.
Oh
Yeah, yeah.
man.
So you can literally there's so many bikes that you can't buy as a proper dual sport that you can technically dual sport if from an enduro perspective, you wouldn't want to do long distance. But to go get firewood, I think those bikes are really better, man, at the end of the day because they're not designed with like heavy subframes and that kind of thing to carry a lot of heavy stuff. And again, man, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
less weight you can have between your legs off road, the better off you are for sure.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thanks
Yeah.
for hanging out. I really enjoyed it.
This is so. This is a lot of fun,
Yeah.
man. I really did enjoy
Yeah, let's
this.
do it. Let's
Yeah.
do it again.
So I mean, what's funny is we talk like this all the time, just not
Yeah, yeah,
not
I
on
know,
camera.
right? But I do like this format. This format is awesome, man. So
I love it.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Well, next time after I watch the video on your Tenere, I want to ask you some more questions. So maybe next time.